The Car Dealer podcast is sponsored by AutoTrader. John, do you know why I, like nearly 14,000 other dealers, work with AutoTrader?
No, but I have a feeling you're going to tell me.
Well, with around 84 million consumer visits each month, it connects us with more engaged car buyers than anyone else in the UK. And there's the ability to reserve cars when the dealership is closed.
So you can stick to your strict 8 p.m. bedtime.
Exactly. And the AutoTrader team are always on hand to offer their insights, ensure we get the very best from our package, and ultimately sell more cars.
Well, that's good, because you are going to need all the help you can get.
Oi, less of that. Dealers, if you want to find out more, log on to trade.autotrader.co.uk.
Welcome back to the Car Dealer podcast, where we pick our favourite stories of the week and ask an industry guest to choose which were the best. I'm John Reay, and joining me this week, it's not James Baggett, because he's once again gone to live in a forest for a week and pay £1,500 for the privilege. It's James Batchelor. Batch, nice to see you.
Hello. It's lovely to be back, but as we all know, the only reason why I'm here is because James Baggett is currently going down the rapids at Centre Parks. It's very touching that you've organised for me to come on, but I'm sorry to our guest, but I'm not sort of an A-lister here, am I?
No, you're more like a sort of nice cameo that pops in every now and again, I would say. You're very much the Janice in Friends, It's always nice when you come back in, but we don't want too much of you,
Thanks very much. I should take that as a compliment.
Anyway, what have you been up to this week, this month, this year?
Well, it's been a bit of a busy time. There's been quite a lot of, as we shall come on to, there's been quite a lot of news going on in the car industry this week. I suppose the biggest thing that I've sort of been doing lately is I've been talking to lots of manufacturer MDs. I've been on lots of manufacturer events, and probably the most interesting one was the SEAT event, which I went on a few weeks ago. Now, I know, I think you probably spoke about this on the podcast last week, so I won't talk too much about it, but it was quite interesting to go to a car brand launch, which, SEAT has been around for a very, very long time, and yet I was sitting there in the audience and the boss was standing up saying, we're effectively relaunching this car brand, which is quite an odd sort of position to sort of be sitting in, really. And of course, it was done on the Isle of Ibiza. You can see what they did there, can't you? And it was just, I found it very perplexing, really, because this is a brand that is very much unloved these days, and Volkswagen Group have got this idea that they're going to relaunch it. It's going to appeal to lots of young people, and you're just I was just sort of sitting there thinking, yes, but the Chinese are here, and nobody's really interested in SEAT anymore, are they? So it was So the last few weeks, to recap, have been very, very interesting. The most interesting thing was going to this SEAT brand relaunch event.
I'm surprised you said that, Batch, because I was talking to a journalist or a couple of journalists the other evening who were quite angry about that particular event because they said they'd been flown out to Ibiza to basically be shown a 10-year-old car with a new ashtray.
Well,
and
yes.
expected to be wowed by it.
Yes, I wasn't particularly happy to be there, to be perfectly honest with you, but it was still quite interesting to hear what the brand has plans for. I think the most interesting thing is that there's not going to be a full EV for at least another 5 years, which you're thinking, how on earth is that possible? But there must be some kind of way of getting around the ZEV mandate, probably. I don't know, but it was still relatively interesting. I did feel as though it was a bit of a waste of 2 days. It could have been done on a Zoom call, really. But it was a trip to Ibiza in October when it was 25 degrees. I mean, it wasn't too bad.
Would you want to know where I've been, Batch?
Sorry, I'm not being very polite, am I? Yes, where have you been, John?
I've been to Bicester. Been all go here, very much all go. No, what have I been driving? The Geely EX5.
Oh, yes.
Which is, yet another Chinese electric C-segment SUV thing, which they're very excited about. It's just like I said a few weeks ago, they're all starting to blur into one a little bit. And I mean, there's another brand has been launched this week, hasn't there? Which I'm sure we'll come on to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. But I will say, to its credit, it was the most European Chinese car that I've got in as yet. Like, it didn't feel, there was things that are not quite there, but you can see it kind of getting there. You know, like some cars you get in and it's just a bit obviously annoying and not really sort of thought through, particularly infotainment, things like that. You know, all the screens and stuff. They're all a bit cookie cutter, aren't they? They're all a bit like, I've just put an Android tablet on the dash and called it a day.
Yes.
And this is a little bit better than that, which is good.
Interesting, because
Anyway,
I was looking at some pictures of it, because I haven't seen it yet, and I was looking at some pictures of it, and I thought the interior was just yet another Chinese car interior, and the styling is unbelievably anonymous. I just don't know why we can't have interesting looking Chinese cars. I was just, we sort of go from the extreme of having the Aura Funky Cat, which look absolutely ridiculous, to the sheer anonymity of every other Chinese car, which but everybody else in the industry, lots of my colleagues have all said very similar things to you, John, and they are heaping praise on this new Geely. But I haven't seen it yet. But from what I've seen, I'm yet to be convinced, I have to admit.
I'm not sure I'm heaping praise on it, but I would say I'm tepid. Absolutely
Tepid.
fine, I think is how I
Okay.
described it.
All right.
Absolutely fine. Anyway, I'm going to introduce our guest now, who will have more interesting things than us to say. No pressure. So our guest this week is Craig Ford, Head of Sales, Marketing and Digital Solutions at Motability. Craig, thanks for joining us.
Hi guys, yeah, nice to be here. Sounds like you've had really interesting weeks.
Well, it's very kind of you to say that, Craig. And we were just wittering on, really, weren't we? But
nothing beats a trip.
I guess you would have taken a couple of days in Ibiza. Yeah, it's not been great in Bristol, but yeah, sounds like fun.
Yeah.
In Ibiza. I mean, Ibiza is not really a James Batchelor haunt, I would say, if you were picking a holiday destination. But anyway, Craig, I'm going to move us swiftly on from talking about Seats that haven't been updated much in the last 10 years and talk a bit about Motability. So, I mean, I guess everyone's heard of Motability, obviously, by this point. You know, the scheme's been running a very long time and is very popular. But just tell us a little bit how it all actually works.
So, yeah, in terms of mfldirect, which is effectively the part of the business that I work in, we're the part of the business, part of Motability Operations that sells all the vehicles that come back at the end of the lease. So mfldirect is a is a platform where we sell cars directly to car dealers, and we're set up to make used car buying really simple for dealers. And we partner with around 4,000 dealers at the minute who buy cars from us. So when a vehicle gets returned at the end of its lease on the Motability scheme, what we then look to do is sell that car. And so what we sell probably 200 or 1,000 cars this year. The vast majority of those cars are going to be your Heartland makes and models. They're all going to have a service history. They're all going to be, relatively low mileage and generally in very good condition. So that's what we do at mfldirect is we take those cars from the scheme and then we sell those into car dealers and try and make that process as smooth as possible.
Yes, because that is the sort of unique thing about buying ex-Motability cars is they are, generally speaking, in much better condition than your average bit of used stock, I guess, because part of it is the maintenance package, all built in, isn't it, I suppose? Is that sort of, that part of the why these cars are in such good nick when they actually come up for sale?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the fact that, the mileage is typically around 20 to 25,000 miles. So that's the kind of average mileage that a car will come back at the end of its 3 years. So, typically, really good condition, and you've got that full service history because it's all maintained through the dealer network. And to say that, the volume of cars and the variety is significant. It's very different to other lease codes where they will have lots of similar product. We will have it's very much like retail where each car it's an individual car that one of our customers is selected and then broadly looked after really well through the 3 years.
I mean, I was just going to ask what sort of cars are on the scheme, generally speaking, but it's as you say, quite broad, isn't it? I know there's an upper limit. You're not getting your Range Rovers and Bentleys and so on, obviously, but it's everything from Citroen to Ford to BMW to whatever, isn't it? Really, it's quite a broad spectrum of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the Heartland product that you'll see. You log on to mfldirect and, there are probably 3,000 odd cars on there today, thousands of derivatives, really. And then they range from, a couple of weeks old up to kind of 5 years, with the vast majority of our cars being 3 years old.
So you're an online platform, like a lot of other auction platforms at this point. How do you keep in touch with dealers and kind of, I don't know, some dealers are, well, all dealers are very au fait with buying things online now, of course, but there are some that still like a bit of personal touch, come and look at the cars in person. How do you kind of, is it just that the cars are in such good condition anyway that dealers don't tend to worry about coming to see them physically? They got trust in you to kind of deliver what it looks like on the website.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I guess first of all, we've been selling cars online since 2000, so I think we were one of the first places you could buy cars online, and we put a lot of emphasis on relationships with our dealers. Buying and sourcing used cars is difficult, right? It's challenging, particularly the minute we know there's an undersupply in that kind of 3 to 5 year space, and it's stressful. You only have to read the Ben report to see that, in the top 5 most stressful things, finding stock it is one of those things that really, is hard for dealers. So we put a lot of emphasis on the people. We've got a large team of account managers and relationship managers who work with dealers to make sure that they get the best out of our platform. So it's not just about going on and buying a car and that's it. There's a whole wrapper that we put around it. If you've got an issue with the car, we've got a process where you can talk to us, and we've got a team of people there to help if you've got any problems. So yeah, it's all about relationships and trust, and we put a lot of emphasis on that and building relationships with our dealer customers and ensuring that we can kind of help them, because we know it's challenging out there being a motor trader. I, like you, spend a lot of time talking to dealers and owners of those businesses, and it's tough. And we want to be a partner for those dealers to help them stock cars and make that as smooth as possible.
Craig, you said, which I think will be of a lot of interest to a lot of listeners to this, that you've been selling cars online since 2000, which I mean is quite, when you actually stop and think about it, that's quite an extraordinary fact, isn't it? And dealers are using online platforms every single day of the week. I mean, I know you've sort of touched upon this already, but what is it that makes you different? You've been doing this for 25 years on online. So what kind of advantage does that give you?
I think trust, right? So you're buying cars directly from us. You're not buying it through a third party. You're buying directly from Motability Operations, mfldirect. So I think that gives dealers comfort that they're buying direct from source. And as I say, we're there to help dealers and ensure that dealers get the most out of us. Our platform's absolutely rapid. We put cars on at 9 and 2, and we could sell hundreds of cars in a couple of minutes. And so the tools that we give dealers to ensure they get the right cars, the platform's all designed around allowing dealers to be alerted to vehicles that they might be interested in. And we've got a really great recommendations engine. Kind of 20% of cars that we sell come through that. So are recommended to dealers. They go on and view those cars and then buy those cars. And we've got a product team and a technology team who are talking to our dealers all the time and looking to build features and elements within the site to help make buying way more straightforward. So yeah, that fact that you're buying direct from source, and the fact that we are focused around building products to make the process easier, and we're really straightforward, I think sets us apart from the competition. The other things is, and this, don't want this to be a sales pitch, but we don't charge fees, and that's like I think a really big deal.
Yeah, that's quite unusual. I mean, I was going to say as well, with all the technology that you have and the numbers that you're working with in terms of cars, you must have quite a good insight into what dealers are buying, generally speaking, any trends. I mean, what sort of things are popular at the moment? What are dealers desperate for?
So this year's been really interesting, right? And I'd say we know there's that undersupply in the 3 to 5 year space, and what we've seen over the last 12 months is dealers really diversify what they're willing to buy in stock, whether that's age or whether it's different brands, or I was speaking to a really large franchise dealer that was owned by an OEM, and I was quite surprised to hear that they're stocking 35% out of franchise, whereas historically that was 10-15%. So we've seen dealers really diversify what they are looking to buy. And at the moment, the things that are flying off the shelves the quickest is those sub 20K EVs. We're persistently seeing EVs in roughly the 3 year range that we sell for under 20K. They are selling far quicker than their ICE equivalents, significantly quicker. I think the other thing that's really encouraging is that we're seeing the number of independents buying EVs or trying EVs for the first time increase quite significantly. So at the beginning of the year, that was around 20%. And that's now up to about 40% of our independents now are buying EVs. So yeah, that's the hot stuff right now, is the sub 20K 3 year EVs.
Yeah, I think we've had. I think there was some data that came in last week actually from Cap HPI, who said that used electric cars sold the fastest in October, beating everything else. And I do feel as though, I know it's probably slightly too early to say this, Craig, but I do feel as though the tide is changing a little bit, with more dealers willing to actually dip their toes in the world of used EVs. Whereas 12 months ago, quite often we'd be doing a car dealer live, we'd be talking to various people, and they'd be saying, I'm not ready to stock EVs yet. I'm looking at the prices, I'm looking at how the RVs on them, I'm not entirely sure whether it's the right move for me. Whereas now, I think 12 months on, I think the pool of people sort of willing to actually buy some stock of used EVs is growing, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree, and I think we know that franchise dealers are well into it, right? So they get a lot of support from the OEMs for training and insight, and they've typically got the technicians and the technology to be able to manage the car in life. And but we are seeing independent dealers definitely starting to move into that space in bigger numbers. So we do lots of different types of research, but we have a kind of a big CSI that we do each year, and we have a section in there around EVs. And there's kind of 3 categories. There's people who are like into EV and buying and selling them, those who are showing interest, and then those that are currently not on the journey. And that kind of showing interest section within our research has grown by 15 to 20%, which is really significant. And when you speak to our teams on the phone, they get a lot more questions and queries now about what's selling, and I guess importantly, what margin you can make. And I think from a dealer perspective, when you look at the data, you can make really good margin on EVs. And I think people now, certainly we've seen the values as well stabilize nicely over the last 6 to 9 months. Those EV values have been really nice and stable. People are now willing to get involved, and as soon as you start to sell them, and you see that you're making a good margin on them, then you build confidence, don't you? Like with anything, you do something once and it works out, then you're willing to give it another go. So, yeah, it's really encouraging. It really is.
I'm sure some of that as well certainly in the last few years, it came from used EVs looking like a bit of a bargain, really, one way or another. Do you think that's still the case? Do you think a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old, I don't know, Vauxhall Corsa electric or something, do you think that looks like an appetizing thing to buy if you're a retail customer or even a dealer at this point?
I think so, and I think we're seeing a lot of price parity in some EVs actually being cheaper than their ICE equivalent. So like straight off the bat, that's looking quite appealing. And then I think if you can explain to the customer what the added benefits are, and their personal circumstances would meet using an EV, then like the numbers just add up, don't they? It's significantly cheaper if you can charge overnight at a low tariff. And yeah, I think when you put the whole bit together, and as long as you can explain that to your customers kind of quickly and simply, it does. They do look like really good value. They do look really good value.
What I find interesting as well is, of course, if we talk about, I'm hesitant to call you like a regular fleet operator in a way, but like, the cars that you've got on your scheme, people have gone out and chosen them themselves. You're not forcing an electric car upon anyone. It's not a company car tax benefit, anything like that. Your customers are walking into showrooms and going, yes, I want that electric car as opposed to the petrol equivalent. How are your customers taking to EVs? I'm talking your retail customers. How are Motability scheme users getting on with them? Presumably quite well if you've got them in the numbers that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen adoption of EVs across the schemes really positive, and as you say, we don't we're not forcing that on anyone. It's all about choice. The scheme is about choice and giving our customers the choice to choose the car that they want that best suits them. And I think we're absolutely seeing customers that are where an EV suits their lifestyle and really getting on with them. I mean, they're fun, aren't they? They're exciting to drive. They're really exciting to drive. The technology that's available in the car certainly makes the driving experience safer and in a lot of ways, a lot more accessible, right? Plus the fact that, as you say, if you can charge overnight, they're significantly cheaper to run than the ICE equivalent. And I say, just being great to drive. So yeah, adoption across the scheme is really positive. We're like 100,000 EVs on the fleet and continuing to grow. But importantly, we continue to focus on giving our customers the best choice and the best value that we can. That is, the purpose of the scheme is to support disabled people's mobility and giving them the best possible service. So yeah, EVs, it's really exciting, and I don't know about you both, but it's a great time to be in the industry, and I think really exciting as we transition into these new drive chains. Really exciting products.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, speaking of new products and it being an exciting or certainly a strange time to be in the industry is what I would call it in a way. There's a lot of new brands appearing. Are those? You have to forgive me because I haven't been through the Motability scheme's exact list of car manufacturers. But are you kind of getting into the the BYDs and the Cherries and et cetera as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And the engagement with the Chinese brands has been, really, really positive. And let's say you've been talking about some of the Chinese product at the front of the program today, and a lot of those cars are really nice cars, great space, really good family vehicles. And we're seeing where those Chinese manufacturers are engaging with the scheme. Customer demand for those cars has been really positive because of the quality of the product, the size of the product, and the accessibility of the product. I think really tick a lot of boxes for our customers.
And just circling back to EVs a little. Oh, sorry, Batch, go on.
Well, no, I was just going to say it sort of dovetails slightly with what you were saying there, Craig. I mean, you've clearly got a lot of customers who are willing to embrace electric. You said the numbers there. I mean, from what you've seen, I mean, what do you think is sort of really driving or holding back even the pace of EV adoption?
So I think in the used space, right? So I think the first thing was range and range anxiety. I just don't think that's a problem anymore. I think when you look at the vast majority of new EVs, but then also that are coming off at 3 years, the range is in excess of 200 miles. And I think once you get to that point, it's not a problem. Um, Battery health is definitely a hot topic. And I think for a lot of consumers, when buying a used EV, that has been something they've struggled with. But it's just not an issue, and I think what we've got to try and get across to consumers is that battery health on a 3-year-old car just isn't an issue. And I know when I speak to dealers, consumers are saying to them constantly, I want to see the battery health on this vehicle. We've recently launched our battery protection on MFL. So if a dealer buys a used EV and the vehicle has got a battery health of sub 90, we'll take it back, no questions asked. And we've tested thousands and thousands of these cars, and none of them have come back with anything sub 90. So I think it's trying to get consumers into that space where they understand that a car battery isn't like a mobile phone battery, right? It doesn't get hot. There's so much technology in the car that protects the battery that it's not going to run down or degrade like a mobile phone battery. It's just not a thing. So I think that we need to do a job there, don't we? We need to educate customers, and we need to do work across the industry to make sure that those myths are debunked. So I think that that's something we need to kind of focus on. But it's ensuring that dealers, not just franchise dealers, but independent dealers, get support um, and training and education to ensure that they can answer consumers' questions and point, as I say, if the consumer's lifestyle would support an EV, then talking them through and explaining the benefits confidently and being able to deal with those questions and queries confidently. I was at a BVRA forum a couple of weeks ago, and there were some car dealers there, and for them that was the big thing is making sure their staff can confidently explain um, how an EV works, why battery health isn't a problem. And then I guess longer term, it's infrastructure, isn't it? And that's again something we've got to work on. It's not just about charging; it's also about technicians and specialists and tooling to be able to maintain these vehicles. And that needs to grow, and we need to ensure we've got that within the industry to support the dealers.
We spoke to Darren Martin at Picasso last week, and he was saying electric car prices actually rose 2.9% in October, which is not a move we're particularly familiar with EV values. I mean, does that fit in with what you're seeing across your platform? Are prices starting to just edge up a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. And I think in October we saw EV vehicles outperform the ICE equivalent by 5 percentage points on when compared to a well-known industry guide. So yeah, and in terms of desirability and ratings, we are seeing in October we saw EVs outperform their ICE equivalents quite significantly. So yeah, I would back that up 100%.
So your advice not to put words in your mouth, but your advice to dealers would be to just give them a try, really, I suppose. They're not, the EVs are not as scary as everyone seems to, well, not everyone, certain portions of the market seem to think they are. There is the demand there for them. Customers are getting interested in used EVs, and they are still quite well priced.
100%. There's profit to be made in those vehicles. And I think that first and foremost, right, from a dealer's perspective, that's what they're interested in. Take a chance on those cars, buy them from a trusted supplier, And it's the future. And I think what we've seen with dealers, once they've taken that first step and they've trained their staff, they've got confidence to be able to talk to consumers about this new product. They get comfortable with it and they start to stock them and make good money. So yeah, give them a go.
Interesting. So, plug time. How can dealers get in touch with you or find out more about MFL?
So yeah, mfl.co.uk. Log on. We've got a really friendly team of account managers and relationship managers. Ready to talk to dealers of all shapes and sizes. As I say, the breadth of the vehicles we've got online at any day is significant, and there's always a car for every dealer. So yeah, log on and give us a shout, and hopefully we can help you out.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you here, Craig. Thanks for sticking around for us doing some stories. But I suppose we'd better get on with it, hadn't we, Batch? Because we're halfway through.
Yes. Yeah, we have got quite a lot to talk about, actually, I think.
We'll be right back. Now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Autotrader has around 84 million consumer visits each month and connects you with more engaged car buyers than anyone else in the UK. Their technology and data is unmatched and features impressive AI-driven tools like CoDriver, which can help you craft brilliant adverts. It also gives dealers access to AI-driven insights around pricing, demand, and supply. If you're an Autotrader partner, the team are always happy to help you get the very best from your package. Autotrader is committed to helping retailers keep up with the pace of change, stay competitive, and ultimately sell more cars. You can find out more at trade.autotrader.co.uk. This is a paid partnership in association with Dealerway. John, guess what?
Oh, God. You've bought more ducks, haven't you?
No ducks, John. Wrong there. I've actually got a new habit. I've signed up for Dealerway alongside more than 2,500 other rated and vetted car dealers to sell my trade part exchanges. The site is designed for dealers to sell their part exchanges for more money, quickly and easily. There's no seller's fees, and buying a car costs just £99, one of the cheapest around. And when I haven't got the time to list a car myself, I can even WhatsApp them the details and they do it all for me.
That sounds awfully familiar. So are you selling all your stock there now?
Not exactly, John, but if I do have a sudden influx of Kia Picantos, I know where to send them. Dealers can find out more at dealerway.co.uk. Now, back to the podcast.
So, Batch and I are going to run through our favourite stories of the week, and at the end, Craig gets to decide which one of us chose the best ones and who is the winner. Neither of us were here last week, were we, Batch? So, Rebecca won in our absence rather than James, so that means you start, Batch.
Do I?
Does it?
Okay.
No, Rebecca was covering me. Oh, God, that
Yes, I
means
was
I have
about
to
to
start.
say
Oh,
that's yes,
didn't think
yes.
this through, did I? Okay, right. Well,
I don't think it
lots
really
to talk
matters,
about.
to be perfectly honest with you, but there we are.
Excuse me, it's the bylaws of the podcast.
Sorry.
So lots going on at the moment, but I'm going to start with Robert Forrester, who's always
Oh.
good for a quote. So Robert Forrester has been hitting out at the EV sales target for next year, which is 33%. And he says this is wholly unrealistic and will lead to rationing, is the word he's chosen. And I don't think that means going down to your Citroen dealer with a ration book. It means that, in effect, car dealers or manufacturers are going to tell car dealers probably towards the end of the year, whoa there, don't sell that petrol Ford Puma. You want to just try and hang on because we've not quite hit our target. Only sell electric ones and push people into the year after, which is exactly what happened last year, just towards the end of last year. Of course, that's not happening this year by the looks of it, because I think the target for this year is all sort of smaller than it was last year in a way. Am I right, Batch? It sort of went down a little bit and then it's going to creep back up again next year.
Yes.
But yes, Robert says it's not going to work. He says the ZEV mandate is putting immense pressure on every level of the industry, from parts suppliers to retailers. He's gone on to talk about various, things to do with the economy. We're in an era where lots of taxes are going up. There's talk at the minute, obviously we're before the budget, but there's talk of tax being put on a lot of different things in society in general, and quite a lot on automotive as well. So his point is this 33% target is just not achievable because we're currently on about 23%. He says we're a country mile away from getting to 33, and no one in the industry can see a way of getting there. Now, I will say this is not taking into account the derogations, my favorite word, that are in place. There are mechanisms there so that it doesn't necessarily have to be 33%, because whatever the target was last year that I forgot, was it 22 something? 22%. I don't think many manufacturers with a mix hit the 22% without utilizing some form of, well, we've not done 22% EV, but we have reduced our CO2 target, blah, 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 compared to whatever year was in the documentation. Or we've offset it and we're going to hit it in a few years' time. So there's lots of mechanisms to be utilized that, as I understand it, are still in the revised ZEV mandate. So, fundamentally, car manufacturers are probably going to hit this target. But as Robert says, some of them, perhaps, we will see a bit of rationing. And of course, as the head of a very large dealer group, he's footing the bill for it, really, because if he can't sell the cars, that's going to be a bit of a problem. What do you think of this match?
Well, I had this story written down as well because I listened to the interview that he did with Nick Ferrari on LBC, and I mean,
Nick Ferrari, of course. Just to say, Batch, Nick Ferrari is exempt from the ZEV mandate because he's a small volume manufacturer.
He is, yes. Well done. I'm glad you interrupted me for that pointless remark.
Carry on, sorry.
No, so I listened to the interview, and it was more of a chat. I mean, it wasn't a grilling. You could tell that Nick Ferrari was very much he's got a good relationship with Robert Forrester. I think Robert's been on the show before, and it was a bit of a chat between kind of two like-minded men, really. But which did make me think. I mean, it really would be good, wouldn't it, to get Robert on? And I'm not advertising my services as an agent here. I do want to clarify that, but I think it would be good to get Robert on something like Question Time, where he can sit opposite a government minister and actually thrash this out, because I'm not taking anything away from what Robert said. He was very forceful in his views, but it would be good if that could be if his views could be contested a little bit. But I do. We've had Robert on Car Dealer Live in the past, and he's not backwards in coming forwards, isn't he? And it kind of makes me think why more dealership CEOs aren't coming out with these kinds of things, because you're right. You touched upon it there. I mean, really, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but for as far as Robert is concerned, he sells electric cars and he sells petrols and diesels. So he's not. He's not backing just one horse. He's backing everything, and yet he still thinks we still can't meet these targets, and more needs to be done. I think that one of the interesting things he did say, which I've heard actually, the new Vauxhall MD said this to me as well, is there's this feeling, I think, within the industry that the industry's had its one chance to sort of delay or to implement and agree these targets. The Labour government have given the car industry that opportunity, and now they're focused on other things, and it's all done and dusted. And yet the car industry would like to potentially get back round the table and look at the figures and say, look, perhaps we need to tweak it again. This needs to be an ever-changing thing. It can't just be something you put in place 1 year and then expect by some miracle it's all going to fall into place. So, bit of a long answer there, John, I know, but it was a very interesting interview. I thought I just wish Robert would be able to make his points on a a larger platform.
I mean, is Car Dealer magazine not big enough? I don't know what more you want.
Well, Robert, if you are listening, please do come to Car Dealer Live at Gaydon in March next year, because we'd be delighted to have you.
Yes, we absolutely would. I mean, I'm just before I hand this over to Craig for his opinion on this, I'm just going to counter some things there, Batch, which I think you can't, like to say it's to keep adjusting it and keep adjusting the targets and whatever. I guess on the one hand, also have to say the industry wants clarity and stability. I could get up and do my Theresa May standing pose with my legs out.
Please don't.
For stability. But yeah, like if you keep moving the targets, how do you plan for that? Everything in most industries, particularly automotive, is planned years, months in advance. So, you can't keep just go, oh, we'll just shift it down the road a bit further. And then the second thing is, of course, I'm slightly, how can I put this? I'm slightly more of the persuasion that sometimes a bit of regulation is necessary. I'm not saying this is necessarily the case here, but I think if you didn't have some form of regulation in the world as a whole,
it's a bit of a stick, isn't it?
The market would not
It's a
necessarily
stick.
decide what is right. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think, and I think that's the view of most governments, is that regulation is somewhat important. So I think you can't just bend over every time. And I suppose their argument would be, well, your car manufacturers, you need to work out how to make an appealing car that happens to be EV. And of course, there's a lot more to it than that. There's infrastructure and so on, which the government are not doing a huge amount about, in my humble opinion. But yeah, I don't think we can keep moaning about it forever. Is my
no, and I totally agree with you, and I think you do need to stick. But you look at it from the point of the manufacturers. I can't see how manufacturers can do much more, really. And I think there does need to be an open dialogue whether things are working, and I don't think it can just be a one-time conversation. I think there does need to be a bit of open dialogue on whether things do. And I think the big issue is that the UK has been a little bit too aggressive with its policy. You compare to Europe, they seem to be a little bit more open to having a wider window. So I don't know. I totally agree with you, but I also have the view that I think there does need to be some kind of open dialogue, and you can't just set these rules and just hope everything falls into place, because that's just never going to happen.
True. Craig, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if you're thinking this from the dealer's perspective, a lot of it's going to depend on what manufacturer you sell.
Yes, absolutely.
And hitting 33% if you're like a manufacturer that's got a amazing range of EVs, all new cars, very popular, selling well, price great, then probably 33 is quite straightforward, right? Whereas if you haven't got a range, your cars are older, or you're waiting for your new models to come through, then it's a sticky position to be in with staring down 33. So I think it really does depend on what marquees you've got above your door, and the demand for those, and I guess the marketing as well, right? How much the manufacturers are going to be helping with marketing on those new products. So yeah, it is really sticky, and I think it does vary significantly depending on what you're selling. So I think that's probably some of that is he's getting across when he's talking about that challenging target. And targets are there to be challenging, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Precisely my point. I mean, do you think there are manufacturers that are going to struggle with 33%?
Yeah, I think there's a load of manufacturers that have got really quality products at great prices, and I think 33 will be fine. Whereas others, where they've got new models coming through, haven't necessarily got the demand just yet. And again, you've talked about the competition now, right? There's a lot more competition in the space for your retail customer now. It feels like every couple of weeks we've got a new entrant, and those cars are really good value. And I know you said they've got some of them quite bland, but you get a lot of car for your money. Everything connects up. Your seats are nice and warm. There's some good product out there.
Absolutely. I suspect this won't be the last EV story we'll have today. James Batchelor, move us on.
Well, let's stick with the EV theme, because we were talking about carrots and sticks, and how about this for a stick? It seems like the government want to bash motorists who have gone down the EV route. The Telegraph reported this week that Rachel Reeves is considering what's been branded as a poll tax on wheels. So this scheme will involve users estimating how far they will drive over the following 12 months and making extra payment on top of VED. So it's this idea that you will be taxed, pay by mile if you are driving particularly an EV. So this has got people sort of very hot under the collar in our industry this week. The AA weren't particularly impressed with it. Edmund King warned the government to tread carefully. We had Ian Plummer at Auto Trader saying, look, the Chancellor needs to be thinking extremely carefully before introducing pay per mile charging for EVs. We've had the SMMT have also come out and said that this would be entirely the wrong measure at the wrong time. And even Ginny Buckley at electrifying.com said you can't drive the EV transition with one foot on the accelerator and the other on the brake. This story sort of appeared out of nowhere this week. I mean, I had no idea that the government were considering this. I think it's taken everybody in our industry by surprise, because let's face it, the narrative up until now, particularly over the vast part of this year, has been the government wants to do as much as possible to encourage people to go electric. And we know that through the electric car grant. The electric car grant has had its faults, as we know. The rollout of that hasn't been entirely smooth, but the whole point of it, the whole methodology behind it, is positive. And yet, if the Chancellor does introduce this, which it sounds as though she is going to, it might really affect the transition to EV. So yes, a bit of a bolt out of the blue this week, I thought. I don't know what you thought about that, Johnny Reay.
I'm making this face because how is it going to work on the ground?
Well,
did you say you estimate how many miles you're going to do a year and then you're taxed based on that?
Yes, well, we need a lot more detail about this, don't we? Which again, this is one thing which governments don't tend to be very good on. They like to come out with these bold. Well, they haven't actually come out with it. It's presumed that this is going to be declared, but we really do need a lot of detail on this, because we've never had a taxation scheme like this for cars. So, it really is going to sort of shake things up quite considerably.
I mean, to me, unless you put a black box in every car, which is not going to happen, or you put up ANPR cameras on every road across the UK, which is equally not going to happen, I don't know how this is tenable as an idea.
I think it's only black box. I think the only feasible way you can do this is via a black box, isn't it?
Yeah, which is a whole other. That would cause even more outrage than the tax itself, to be honest. Yeah, I personally can't see this happening. I think there's been a little bit of, how can I put this? Ahead of the budget, there's been perhaps a lot of, we might do this, we might do this, we might do this. And then in the hope that maybe when the budget arrives, it's not as bad as everyone thinks. Yes. The narrative is a little bit more positive. And I wouldn't be surprised if this went away, because it just seems completely unmanageable to me to do this. I don't know how this would work at all. Maybe if you were going to do anything, you would put duty on rapid charging or public charge points. That's the only way I can see that functioning. Craig, what?
Well,
you with me on
sorry, just on that, public charging is already confused. Public charging is already too expensive, though, John. So you can't.
Well, I know it is
duty on it, though, can you?
Well, you could say the same about fuel, though, couldn't you? Because there's no
frozen.
duty.
which has been
There's
frozen for the
VAT.
past 15 years, isn't it, really?
Well,
Fuel
that's right.
duty.
There's duty, of course, on fuel, but not on electricity. That's the strange. Well, it's not strange, but Craig, help.
Yeah,
What?
I'm like you. I kind of think it's speculation. It feels like speculation, and perhaps the government putting something out and see what the reaction looks like. Yeah, I agree. The only way it could work is if you connected every car that could be connected in the UK to be able to track the mileage, and that just doesn't seem feasible at the moment. And I think in one of the articles I read, you've then got people looking at a specific journey and seeing how much that would cost additionally. So, gosh, that does seem complicated. So yeah, fingers crossed, it's something that doesn't come in.
Yes. Right. Shall I move us on to? Oh, I don't really want to squeeze another. I'm going to do one more EV one very quickly, which is the Renault Twingo, because of course that's what I was doing last week while I wasn't here, and that's why you didn't see my face and this hat that's too small for my head. So I went to the Twingo unveil in Paris, which was, well, it's a whistle-stop tour of the Twingo, really, because it was, here it is in a studio, and have a poke around and then get back on the plane and come home. But it was well worth having a look because it's actually a very good-looking car, and it's something that Renault has obviously put a lot of effort into. The crucial bits of this for me is that it's under 20k, under 20 grand, allegedly. We'll see, because it won't be here until 2027, like January, February 2027. But Renault has managed to make a car in Europe that's not completely bare bones for less than 20 grand, that is electric and does, 163 miles is not a lot. But they've really pulled their finger out and got on with it. And some of that, it's all like Renault 5 platform. It's all proper Renault underpinnings. This is not a rebadged Chinese car. It's not like Elite Motor has come over from, Shenzhen or wherever they're designed, and somebody's trying to convince you it's actually European. This is a European car. It is actually a proper Renault. Probably will drive like a proper Renault. It's got all the same infotainment stuff. And I was very impressed with it. So it gives me hope that actually, when it comes down to it, car makers from this bit of the world can make something properly good for not a huge amount of money. How they've done that, Batch, if you're interested, because I can see you thoroughly interested in this story, is that the battery tech comes from China. So that's what they've changed. So it's not got the same battery stuff as in a Renault 5 and whatever. But they've built it in something like 100 weeks, which for a European car company is insanely quick to get a car to market. Well, I say that, it's obviously not on sale yet. But anyway, I was very impressed with that, and maybe it's just a hint of what's to come from European car manufacturers, I hope.
Well, I mean, my reply to that is if I were somebody working at Volkswagen, I was in my lovely office in Wolfsburg, I would be really incredibly worried at the moment about what Renault is doing. And this is Renault. I mean, I don't mean to downplay Renault, but you wouldn't say over the past 50 years, would you, that Renault has been at the forefront of, a real kind of a car brand, a car maker that's really led the way and has made other car manufacturers look over their shoulders. Which is really quite extraordinary what's going on at Renault at the moment. But you look at Volkswagen, okay, so look at, over the past 3 years, Renault have just trotted out the Scenic, the Megane, the 5, the 4, some other petrol powered cars as well. They've got the new Clio coming along. It is absolutely in top gear, and yet VW have been traipsing this ID2 or ID Polo, as it's now called, to the world's motor shows for the past 3 years or so, and it's still not ready for production. And I mean, Renault actually is proving to be an answer to China at the moment in terms of product development. But of course, the key strength that Renault have got, and this is what they are leveraging so well at the moment, is it's the want factor, isn't it? It's the heritage, it's the desirability, which, going back to our conversation which we started at the beginning of the show, yes, the Chinese cars, they do have all the tech, they are cheap, they are, they appeal to people who just want a car. There are plenty of people out there who want an emotive car. A car is a they choose a car for a reason, and Renault
Yeah, we're not
really
even
seems to
talking
be
car
tapping into that.
enthusiasts. We're not even talking car enthusiasts. So the sort of person that buys a Fiat 500
Mm,
probably is a little bit in love with how it looks in a way, and
yeah,
it's not a petrol head, generally
and
speaking.
and yeah, and also just one other thing. This not just Renault. You've got to remember. You've also got Alpine and Renault investing, but hundreds of millions of euros into Alpine to develop this into a brand. So they've got that going on as well, and all of the problems of creating a premium performance brand. They've also got Dacia, which it just continues to be a bit of a success story. And just sort of I know these things are a long time in the making, but Renault, I don't know how they've managed to do it, because it seems like every other car manufacturer who laid out these electric car plans 10 years ago they're sort of falling apart and collapsing around their ears at the moment, and yet Renault is managing to make a success out of all of this. It's really quite
I know. And the
staggering.
funny thing is, in the grand scheme of things, it's quite a small car company. I know they've got their alliance with Nissan in a way, but there's not really much. There's nothing Nissan-y about this Twingo, as far as I'm aware.
No.
Compared to VW Group or Stellantis, the might of Stellantis, who can't quite seem to. I mean, they trot out a lot of EVs, but don't seem to have quite the appeal of this one. Anyway, Craig,
No.
did you see the Twingo reveal?
Yeah, well, I think it's great news, as you say, sub 20K for a brand new car, brand new EV. That's great, kind of great entry level. And what did you say, 100 weeks to design it and get it ready to roll?
Mm.
That's a really positive news story. And the Renault 5 is an absolute belter of a car. So if it's got any of the kit that's in there, it's going to be a really really good news story. So and they brought out the Dacia Spring, didn't they? Which was the first kind of really affordable, brand new EV, and it seems to have 40 or 50 miles more range wise. So that's a really good news story. Nice and
I
Yeah,
think
they're
positive
interesting.
that one, right?
Exactly, positive.
Well, can I just briefly talk about the Dacia Spring just a second? Okay, so it's been a topic that we journalists have been banging on about for years, saying, "Oh, where are the cheap electric cars? This is what the market needs. To really get the market going, we need cheap EVs. We get the Dacia Spring. Nobody really likes it. Nobody really buys it. The Leap Motor T03, haven't seen one of those. Nobody seems to be buying those at all.
I have. There's one lives
Well,
near me.
okay, 10 points to you, but nobody else is interested, John. And so it's not, I think it's a bit of a fallacy that everybody wants a cheap EV. Because I think that's one of the reasons for that is how cheap used EVs are. The fact that for 14,995 you can get yourself you can even get yourself a Polestar 2. Okay, admittedly it's a few years old, but you can get a Polestar 2 for 14,995. Polestar 2 Dacia Spring. Let me just think about that for a moment. Um, so I think it's a bit of a fallacy, but this is why the Twingo is, even though it's still at least a year away, and even if the price goes up a little bit, which it might do, it doesn't matter, because people will purely want to own it because they love the way it looks. The price is irrelevant, I think, personally.
One other thing I will say is part of the presentation they were talking about the A segment, and where is the A segment gone? A segment being city cars, your Hyundai i10s, whatever, and lots of manufacturers have abandoned it, including Renault to an extent, because the Twingo left us a while ago. But they say the buyers for it, part of it is that the price of everything has increased, so you've got to a point where a city car is maybe $3,000 or $2,000 less than a B segment. So most buyers go, oh, well, I'll just jump to a B segment, then I'll get more stuff and it's a bit safer and all that stuff. But there are still people that want a small car, particularly Motability users, I suspect, who do not want to park a Polestar 2 batch every time they go to Sainsbury's. They want something tiny.
I get that, but look at the sales of tiny electric city cars in the UK. I mean, it hasn't exactly rocketed, has it? So I mean, it's I sort of wonder whether we are sort of, banging on about the wrong thing here. I think uh, I'll go back to what I said, which I just think people will purely want to have a Twingo because they want it,
Mm.
regardless of whether it's under 20k or not. Doesn't really matter, I don't think.
Don't say that too loudly because I'll put the prices up. Do you want to squeeze one more in, Batch?
Yeah, I'll squeeze one more in. Yeah, so James Bagger, I think. Well, you went along as well, didn't you, Johnny Ray? You went up to see Mike Brewer very recently, and
Yes.
we shot a video with him, and it was great to see Mike. Talking about the passion he's still got for selling used cars and the used car industry. But he did reveal to us that one part of his operation is sadly closing down, and that's Mike Brewer Motors. That's that car supermarket operation. I think it's been going for around sort of like nearly 15 years or so, hasn't it? And up in Sheffield. And I remember talking about it at the time. It shows you how old. How old I am and how long I've been doing this job. I remember it being massive news in the car dealer office at the time. But Mike says he's having to close down the business and he's laying the blame squarely at the door of the government. He says that these increases of national insurance and other associated costs, business taxation and what have you, have made the business unprofitable and unviable. And unfortunately, there are 60 people who work at that at that operation, and it doesn't look very good. And just going back briefly to Robert Forrester, who said on that interview on LBC that how much money Virtue Motors had to set aside this year for the increases in terms of national insurance and the minimum wage. And I think this is something which we're not hearing too much about. I think we will be hearing more about it, but it was very open of Mike to actually talk about this, which seems to be a massive issue, not just affecting the automotive industry, but business as a whole, really. And lots of companies are really feeling the effects of the current government's sort of financial plan. So not a nice thing to hear from Mike, but nonetheless very interesting and reflective of the pressures on our industry at the moment.
It was a very, very succinct, what's the word? Précis of that story, Batch. Thank you. But yes, yeah, it was sad to hear him say that. I mean, I think he kind of slightly sprung it on us when we were doing the interview. We didn't really have a conversation about it before we started the cameras rolling. But yeah, it's very sad. It's always sad when a business closes, and as you say, 15 years it's been going, which is it's quite a well established site, and obviously it's been very profitable up to now. I think obviously we've run this on the Mike laying the blame at the government's door, and he did lean on that quite a lot. But there are other things going on in the industry, of course.
Yes.
We've seen lots of businesses, unfortunately, close their doors in the last 18 months or so. Not just because of government intervention in terms of my words are failing me, but the cost of employing people has got more expensive, obviously,
Yes.
but also the cost of stock and interest rates. And as a result, all your stocking loans, all that sort of stuff has made a lot of these
energy prices. There's all sorts of things, isn't there?
Energy prices. Yeah, exactly. Lots of stuff. So it's very difficult to run. Well, we know it's very difficult to run a car dealership these days, but it's particularly difficult to move one from a time where Mike Brewer Motors was probably doing quite well 10 years ago. Say the world has changed completely, and maybe that business model just doesn't function anymore, which is sad. But yes, of course, his other business, One Automotive, which he's a lot more involved with on a daily basis. It's a bit like James doing his Clever Car Collection. He's down there every day almost, deep in how things are working. That's fine. That's still going, but of course that was set up more recently, so it's sort of it's got that it's built in. All the cost of everything nowadays is in
Baked
the
in.
business model of that company.
Yes.
Exactly. Craig, did you see the story?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's a shame when any business closes, and I think in the kind of independent supermarket space, it's been really difficult in terms of supply and getting the cars churned really quickly. Um, and a lot of businesses with similar models have been under massive pressure. So yeah, as you say, really sad to hear that he's shutting the doors. But wish him well in his other ventures.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, I suspect this won't be the last dealership we hear of that's shutting its doors for similar reasons. But there we are. I'm ending on a negative. Well, Craig, before I ask your verdict, are there any stories you think we've missed this week that we should have talked about?
No, I think, well, I guess my one observation is just it's quite a lot of negative news at the moment. So, yeah, probably trying to find a slightly more positive one to end on would have been good. But yeah, I think you're doing a good job.
So I'm going to have to ask you who chose the best stories, or what was your favourite story?
Well, I'm going to go with the positive one. I'm going with the Twingo. And the reason for that is the 100 weeks dev time. I think that's incredible. And as you say, a really good sign that European manufacturer is working really quickly and hopefully delivering some great product. Fair observations around price, James, versus a 3-year-old. But I think really good, really good sign that the European brands are starting to compete.
Fantastic. Well, that was well worth me getting on a plane to Paris for. I will take that win. Thank you. Well, all that's left for me to say then is thank you, Craig, for coming on today and talking to us about MFL and Motability. And lovely to meet you, of course. And thanks for giving your input to all our stories as well.
Likewise. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Anytime. Thank you as well to Batch. It's always nice to have you. You're not just a stand-in.
Thank you very much. Yes, although I'm not on next week.
That's true. Well, I mean, you can be if you want to be. Is that you?
No.
Are
No,
you interested? No. Okay.
I've got other things to do.
Okay, well, say hi to the rest of the Rover 75 Owners Club for me. And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. Make sure you're subscribed so you can be notified when that goes live. If you want to check out the stories we mentioned today, take a look in the show notes below or head to cardealermagazine.co.uk. Thanks for listening and goodbye.